Well, today we are holding the space of remembrance in this particular hour, especially with the sad news of Mbongeni Ngema's passing this past few days. It's something that was unexpected. He was a man who was healthy, upbeat, he was working, he was a man who was still energized to do more in the entertainment industry. Ngema is best known for his award-winning works, which include Sarafina and Woza Albert. Those ones are the ones that historically stand out, but he did so many works that don't actually are not acknowledged in the public space. We'll chat a little bit about that and the current works that he was busy with. He died in a head-on car accident while returning from a funeral in Lusikisiki in the Eastern Cape province of South Africa. He was very young, right? He was only 68. Yeah, that's the sad part of it. In 1981, he co-wrote the satirical play Woza Albert, a play which imagines that the second coming of Jesus Christ, what it would look like in South Africa. How cheeky is that, right? Such an inventive way of just reimagining narratives and South African and African context. Well, in our studio, we're joined by two legends themselves. One, a mentor of mine in my broadcasting career, Dr. Thulas Nkabinde. He used to do a fantastic music show here on Channel Africa, but in his own right, he's a composer, conductor, and judge for the South African Music Awards. We also have the legend himself, Sipho Hotstix Mabuse. He is an entrepreneur, musician, composer, and band leader of Harare. Well, you know what? I used to hang out at your club in Johannesburg back in my early days of being a journalist, and it was such a cool space. So that was your entrepreneurial endeavor, definitely. So let's come back to you, Dr. Thulas Nkabinde. Looking at this particular moment, many people are surprised. It took people by shock. People were really energized by the current works that he was busy with right now. He had two significant projects that he was working on here in KZN and here in Johannesburg. So it was really a surprise, wasn't it?
Yeah, you have to greet the listeners of Channel Africa from an African perspective.
Going back to your days.
During my heydays in this radio station, Channel Africa, the international radio station of the SABC. Bad news about Mbongeni Ngema. I started interacting with him in 2013. It was sometime in June at Market Theatre. He was performing the Zulu one-man show. Mm-hmm. You can imagine a person at that age performing for 2.5 hours non-stop, mm-hmm. non-stop, wow. Very energetic. And then the press conference was organized by Professor Thulas Nkabinde, who's director of Good Shepherd College of Education and Culture. She wanted to honor him. Honorary doctorate. So she invited the Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Blade Nzimande, who were all together there, Dr. John Kahn and so on. And then she announced that she was going to honor him in November that particular year, 2013. Mm-hmm. And then they asked me to go to that graduation so that I could introduce Dr. Mbongeni Ngema. At that time, he was still Mbongeni Ngema, mm-hmm. So he was being honored, Dr. Mbongeni. So I did the introduction. You can imagine that kind of a CV. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, it's elaborate.
Elaborate.
Yeah.
So that's when I started interacting with him closely. And ever since then, we're together all the time. So it's bad news that he has left us. So we really want to thank Professor Thulas Nkabinde and the Good Shepherd College of Education and Culture and Theology for honoring this icon, because it has never happened in South Africa. We don't honor our own people. They are honored elsewhere in the world, but not at home. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. We have the legend, Sipho Hotstix Mabuse.
And let's talk a little bit about your impressions, Mabuse, in terms of your experiences, and maybe you can give us anecdotes with your experiences with Ntate Ngema.
Good morning to all your listeners, Channel Africa. Thank you so much for inviting me to come and talk about this fallen giant. You know, meeting people like Mbongeni is not always that easy, because it's a privilege for some of us. I think recently I had a performance with him in Pretoria where he was honored with the at the Gallery of Legends.
Wow.
And he was performing there, and my band actually, I had to use my band to back him. And we've been very close.
Sure.
We've been very, very close. Mbongeni and I go back. Well, sorry, sir. You met him 2013.
Yeah.
I met him in the earlier 80s. So, when I met Mbongeni again, number of times, but the most crucial moment was when he was writing Sarafina.
Mm-hmm.
We met in Zimbabwe.
Wow.
And Hugh Masekela was there, Kaifos was there, Gwanga was there, and he said to me, "Hey, Mantrasi, uyazini, nginale musical le engibhalayo." Mbongeni always spoke isiZulu was.
Yeah, sure, it was.
Nginale play le
Sure.
engibhalayo, and ngifuna uHugh azonginceda ukubhala umusic wakhona.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't even know that Mbongeni is a trumpeter.
Oh, wow.
He's a
Okay.
trumpeter, but he loved Hugh so much that
Sure.
he wanted Hugh to collaborate with him.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we met Hugh. We went out to bars in the evening. We got drunk. We did all the things that musicians will always be
Sure.
doing. And our relationship, grew from there and continuously. And every time he had a play or he had a musical elsewhere, I'd be invited, and so on.
Let's talk a little bit about that period, because that's very interesting. I mean, in the 80s, working on a very much controversial narrative.
Yes.
That was probably going to be embargoed within the country.
Yes.
We know that the play was recorded in the 90s,
Yes.
right? So that experience was different to how it materialized.
Yes.
But the angst of a creative to come up with such a controversial narrative, I mean, you were part of that particular generation that was embargoed within South Africa, but your creative energy continued despite those particular limitations. Just so the audience can contextualize how that environment was for entertainers, creatives, and innovators in the entertainment industry at the time.
I think it's important for people to understand that there comes a time in one's life where you have to make decisions about whether you are part of a liberation narrative, or you are going to be comfortable in a little space. And people like Mbongeni, Hugh, and all the musicians that I've spoken about,
Yourself.
because they were in exile.
Sure.
Let's speak about Mbongeni. We're people who are brave enough to say, this is what we're going to do. For us as artists, if anything were to happen, it would just be one of those things. We should always remember that there are people who served time in prison, people who died for this thing, and our little contribution was just minuscule in comparison to what other people sacrificed, so that people died, that we were able to write, and all these things that we wrote. So Sarafina came at a very important period. And Mbongeni was not just he was brave. Mbongeni, even before Sarafina, I mean, with Oza, Albert, Asina Mali, and all the other plays that he wrote, indicated the kind of person he was. I will also make an example.
Sure.
Mbongeni was a free-spirited person. When Madiba told him, don't sing, apologize to the Indian community for singing about, Mbongeni said, no, I'm a free-spirited person. I have the right to speak about things that are close to my heart.
Sure.
And when he wrote the musicals or the plays that he wrote, it was based on the fact that he was a very brave, committed artist. And for that, we miss a lot of that today.
Let me come back to you, Thulas, in terms of the characterization of Mbongeni Ngema. What really made him distinct is the fact he was from KwaZulu-Natal, and his Zuluness was something that he was not ashamed of. He brought that cultural essence of himself, not just as an aesthetic for art, but it was a theme of his artistry, his composition, but most importantly, of his cultural awareness. How important was that, being Zulu, to Mbongeni Ngema?
I think the idea of black consciousness was working on him. Because you can see all his works, it's about the struggle. So that particular background, you can see it has got a very big influence, to his creativity. And then for a person to go to Dube Soweto for the first time in his life, and then staying in a garage for a week or so, and rejected by Gibson Kente after the first audition, and then Gibson Kente said to him, please go back home. You're not going to make it. And he pretended to be going back home. He didn't. He was still around. After a couple of days, Gibson Kente spotted him again. So, you're still here? Yes, I'm still here.
Sure.
And then he spotted him playing a guitar. And then that's when he took him to say, okay, come and join the band and do something in the band. This is how he was accepted by Gibson Kent, and then later on he started acting. So that patience, it tells you this person has got this determination that I am going to do it. And this must be a very strong message to our young artists that please keep on persevering. Don't ever lose hope. One day it's going to happen. I think Sipho, Hotstix, Mabuse, he can tell you exactly the same thing. He started from somewhere. Today he's a legend worldwide known. But he started somewhere. So this is a very strong message to the young artists that please don't give up. This industry is not as easy as you think. You have to persevere.
And not as glamorous.
And not as glamorous as you think. You have to persevere.
But also what made his character very interesting, staying with you, Thulas, is his multiplicity in abilities. You just said he picked up a guitar. That Mabuse said he used to play the horn, the trumpet.
I was not aware of that.
I wasn't even aware.
I didn't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was a composer. He was a playwright. He was an actor. It says a lot about his ability to be diverse in his artistry.
When I visited him at home, somewhere in certain one of the days, he said to me, my mother instructed me to go and look for a job at a certain age, and then I just told her on her face that I'm not this kind of a person who's going to look for a job. I'll do it myself. I'll create job for myself. I'll do it everything. I'm a creative person, so please forget it. You can talk to my other brothers simply, but not me looking for a job. Forget it. So that tells you this person, he wanted to do this thing, and he actually managed to do it with great aplomb.
And that multiplicity is something that does define him. What's your take on his multiple abilities to do so many things in one go and flourish in most of them?
Dr. Nkabinde speaks about parents instructing their young people to go out and find a job. I think many of us have been through those experiences where your mother says, you either leave school, you go back to school, or you're going to find a job. And in the process, when you start making money, they say, continue doing what you're doing.
Yeah, they abandon the job search.
I said, no. Continue doing what you're doing because you're bringing the bacon to the... But anyway, I think people like Mbongeni, in my view, would have been considered curious artists. When you're curious as an artist, you want to delve into a number of things, ideas and thoughts. And probably because you like certain sounds in particular instrument, you go around trying to establish yourself within that space. And Mbongeni did that exactly. That is why you'd find that he was always working with you, because he played the trumpet, he played the piano, he played the guitar. So all those elements of creativity were part of his making, and he was able to engineer them into his creativity. And if you listen to how Brahu wrote Sarafina and the song in particular, and it was typical of Mbongeni's approach to music. And I guess when we become curious in things that we like so much, we start trying to translate our energies into into those things.
Well, let's take a little bit of a break and then we'll come back and continue this conversation with Dr. Thulas Nkabinde, composer, conductor, and judge for the South African Music Awards. We also have the legendary Sipho Hotstix Mabuse, who is a musician, composer, and also the band leader of the heritage bringing band, which was explosive, Harare. Well, it's 28 minutes past 10 o'clock Central African time. We'll continue this conversation after the break. Speak about legacy. I think there's a lot of things that are happening in South Africa that show the legacy of the generation that came before. And it's not just nuance, it's not just peripheral, but it's really central to what's happening in the energy of entertainment right now in South Africa. It's 29 minutes past 10 o'clock Central African time. You are right here on Channel Africa. Thank you for listening to us on DSTV Channel 802, OpenView 628. And don't forget, you can stream us live anywhere in the world on www.channelafrica.co.za. There's also the SABC Plus app where you can stream us on the radio section. Let's take a break. We'll be back. On, Doctor, you were talking about how he received actually a doctorate, and tell us a little bit about that. It was a doctorate at the Good Shepherd's College of Education and Culture in KwaZulu-Natal.
Yes, that took place in November 2013. This professor, Gladys Mhlongo, decided to honor him, saying that we need to recognize our icons in this country. So the reason why she came to Market Theatre when he was performing the Zulu, she wanted to make that announcement, and then it happened that particular year in November.
Did we get a message from them?
Yeah, there's a message from her at the voice note. I think the people would love to listen to that.
All right, let's hear why that doctorate was given to Mbongeni Ngema.
The honorary doctorate of Mbongeni Ngema, the Good Shepherd College of Religion, Culture and Skills Training decided to honor him because he made a very huge difference in our youth, more especially in youth, because he taught the youth, our youth in South Africa, to employ themselves. He gave skills in our youth to survive. So we could not hold ourselves from honoring him in that. But now, he was honored on the 24th of November 2013, which is 10 years now since he was honored with a doctorate in arts, poverty alleviation, job creation, youth development, as well as community development. So Mbongeni's life was well lived. The only problem that he was complaining about is that he was very eager to be taken to the Nazareth Baptist Church, where his parents were full members. Now we were busy struggling to meet Inkosi Unyazile Zulu to baptize him, and he could engage in all activities of the church, due to the fact that he said to me his progress is always attached with bad luck. Or every time when he proceeds, bad luck used to come up. Now he said the only solution that can help him is to go to Unyazile Zulu and get baptized and become a full member of the Nazareth Church, as he was born there. As it is now, I'm hoping that he'll be buried in Nazareth Christianity, Nazareth religion, because he was a very staunch member of the Nazareth Baptist Church. on the Ebuhleni side. On the 3rd of December, he came down from Johannesburg to grace the birthday of Makanyile, the old woman who gave birth to Unyazile Zulu, the Ebuhleni Nazareth leader. His mom was celebrating 84 years. Mbongeni Ngema was there. I last saw him there. I invited him to come there with a hope that he would meet Unyazile Zulu and present his matter to be taken back to the church.
Well, that's how we're going to wrap that up. But a very insightful voice note there, very kind of close relationship type of a voice note. I didn't know he was a spiritual person because he was so flamboyant, very playful, very energetic. And sometimes we think people have that one-dimensional characteristic, Dr. Thulas, and that spirituality is not something that informs that bright energy.
He was a spiritual person. I think this is the reason why Professor Mhlongo is emphasizing the fact that he actually wanted to go back to the church, because apparently he told Professor Mhlongo that things are not okay with him.
Mm-hmm.
There's some bad luck that confronts him.
Mm-hmm.
So from the background of his home, where they go to this church, and then he has deserted the church, so he felt it's high time that he must go back to the church and be baptized again,
mm-hmm.
and follow all the instructions of the particular church. So he was definitely a spiritual person. And then for somebody to think of Woza Albert,
mm-hmm.
the coming back of Jesus Christ in South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen if this Jesus Christ could come back to this country with apartheid?
Sure.
A disaster. So for somebody to come with that creativity, it tells you the person is actually spiritual.
Mm-hmm. And also the entrepreneurial nature that I was even attributing to the likes of yourself, Mr. Mabuse, is something that he had. And what we heard from that voice note that's significant as well is how he was able to also empower young people from a very young age. As a young person himself, he worked with many other young people. It seems like it was something that he was able to say, hey, you can be entrepreneurial in the creative energy, and also you can be young and make it. You have that energy to make it happen.
Sorry, Benjamin, I don't, to be honest, I don't know about entrepreneurship for the artists. We do these things simply because we believe in them.
Sure.
And I don't even imagine that the intention is to create a sense of entrepreneurship in us. We believe that we can uplift people through the work that we do.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, if people would attain some level of material success, and maybe that's the kind of contribution that we did. But I don't think that we go out to be serious business people.
Mm-hmm.
We do these things because it is in our nature to nurture young people and say to them, go out there and be the person that you want to be. And whatever success you make out of, translate it into others and transfer the skills and so on. So the entrepreneurship thing always comes up in the conversations that we have with other people. But in all honesty, I don't think artists are entrepreneurs. That's why we remain poor.
But you know what? I think you undermine the fact that you are self-sustaining to a large degree, and you're able to also create that inheritance for other people to be self-sustaining. And I think to a certain degree, there's an energy of entrepreneurship in that.
You know, one of the things that I always maintain is that we should always be mindful on how we relate to ourselves in terms of what we do.
Sure.
I always say we are a passage.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't belong to us.
Sure.
It's probably, we spoke about spirituality now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, spirituality is something that is embedded in us as people, especially as Africans. It's got nothing to do with the church, it's got nothing to do with a particular religion.
Sure.
It's something that we have in us because we believe that if we give off what we have. That's in itself a spirituality. So when we make the things that we do, it is because we had been sent by the most powerful, the Almighty, to say, I will give you this talent and it is not yours. This is why when an artist passes on, whatever they have contributed through their art remains forever. So isn't that part of spirituality? You know, it's unlike when you are a business person, things fall apart and so on. The children come in because they've never had the experience of how hard you do. But with the arts, it's things that are always in us. And that in itself is it's a level of spirituality that cannot be taken. You can take my body away from it, but you can't take the body of the works that I've done.
Absolutely.
That's the difference.
Let's talk a little bit about legacy. You know, this is a cliche question people would leave behind, like say, what does the artist leave behind? What is the legacy? How do we make sense of it? How do we preserve it? What's your take on that?
Watch Sarafina. Watch Woza Albert. We are speaking about things that Mbongeni has created in all the years. Mbongeni's body is not here with us, but his body of works will remain with us, with younger people for generations to come. For me, that's the kind of legacy that will attribute to someone like him.
Just to add, the other day I was at Soweto Theatre, and then I saw some branding written Gibson Kente Theatre. So apparently Soweto Theatre has been renamed to Gibson Kente Theatre. So in that context, perhaps somebody would have to come up with an idea. One of the theatres, maybe in Durban or something, could be named after him. That's the legacy I'm thinking of, because he has contributed a lot. You know, I met this group called Amajiga. That was way back in 1983 in Durban, Wamashu. Lele Tikumalo was actually leading that group. The person who was responsible for the group was Tunokwe from Wamashu. She's a musician, I think you know her.
Yes.
She's a guitarist, yeah. So she had this group of young stars, performing, dancing, some traditional music, beautiful stuff. And then I actually recorded them for radio. At that time I was working at SAPC in Durban, and that's the first time I met Tunokwe and Lele Tukumal. And that talent has been nourished from that time. So Leliti Kumalo, what she's doing now, comes back a very long way. So the legacy are talking about here. So some theatre needs to be named after him.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, James, for giving us your time and this very kind of open-ended conversation and not very pinned down to specifics. But also I think the spirit of the conversation was the fact that we have been left with a vacuum of a creative, a real giant on the African continent. So thank you both for giving us your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. They say music goes a very long way, and music is part of life. Music is not just entertainment, but it's part of life. So in the words of Professor Mohale Mahanyele, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you come from. Worse, if you've forgotten where you come from.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's the voice of Dr. Thulas Nkabinde, composer, conductor, and judge for South African Music Awards. And also we have Sipho Hotstix Mabuse, who is a musician, composer, band leader of Harare. And I'll minus the
Why are
entrepreneur.
you guys always referring to Harare? My history goes beyond Harare. It's many years before I was part of Harare. You know, I belong to a band called the Beaters.
Yes, yes.
That part of the history is very important.
The Beaters.
And it would seem that it's always part of the history that people don't talk about.
Sure.
That is the foundation of everything that you heard about Harare and all the other bands that existed today.
No, but it was after your tour in Zimbabwe, and then you changed the name to Harare.
But it
because they liked
it was
you
the
there.
Beaters.
All right, guys. Thank you, gents,
you
for
so
giving us
much.
even that historical context on your side. Well, let's go back to a little bit of music and take a bit of a breather, and then we'll come back to more conversations.